work your way up to where you're building a shop. From the shops, it finally blends into, at some point, a barn-dominium. Barn-dominiums grows to the point where now you expand even beyond that. There's full-blown deer facilities that you've built, right? So now you've gone beyond deer facilities, and you've got a whole, it's not just Rafter P anymore. It's Rafter P, and then there's the farm and ranch division of Rafter P. Let's talk a little bit about that. What is the farm and ranch to you?
Before you move into that, though, because one thing I want to talk about is because we keep talking about people that spend a lot of money with us. There's people that to this day, are saving their money that they've seen us grow over the years, that want that 40 by 60 or that 30 by 40, that will take their hard-earned dollars. They've called. I've talked to them. I mean, we've done this numerous times. Mm-hmm. Like, I finally have enough money to be able to afford to pay you for a quality project. Mm-hmm. And they've saved 10 years of their own money. To me, that, you're talking about putting more wind in your sail. You want to win big, sell a multi-million-dollar project, great. But when you have that $60,000 job that somebody's taking their hard-earned money, blue-collar worker, scratched every penny along because they want to use you and knowing you're going to be hiring everybody, but you're going to give them their value. That, to me, is where we talk about this a lot, is that money is nothing to us other than a tool. And I say that for a reason, because I think a lot of people see our social media, think, oh, wow, they got bulls. I mean, they have all this money, they have all these things. No, it's a tool. It's empowering us in industries that we're already working in. Mm-hmm. We're sharing our money to support those industries, not to bloat or gloat about what we're doing. Mm-hmm. We're just supporting the industries we're working in. And I feel like that's where people need to understand that. It's just a tool.
Well, I'm glad you brought that part up. You rewound it a little bit. I think that's an important part. Quality product, saving enough, long enough to get a quality product. Because, being based in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, this market is red hot. Like, we have our own economy at this point, right? Mm-hmm. And what that brings with it, because of opportunity, or other people that want to try to build a similar product, and they're going to say it's the same product, and we know that it's not. I know you've gone through the painstaking process of learning through what works and what, more importantly, doesn't work to create a quality product. And it's the small things. There's an old line about the devil's in the details. Almost anybody can put 4 posts up, hang some purlin, throw some sheets on it, and call it a building, right? But then there's a whole nother class of building that Rafter P gets into, and it's the proven over and over product that withstands things like tornadoes. There's story after story, and I know you love to show them to me. It's like, hey, this storm came through, and we had one right there, and we didn't even lose a sheet off the building.
Well, we just experienced the whole cycle over the last couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. We're sitting in our Decatur office right now. That the eye of a storm a year and a half ago took this conventional house out next to us, mm-hmm. and snapped all those trees off across the road, and like we had one window broke, mm-hmm. and we're that close, taking over 100-mile-an-hour winds. That's unbelievable.
Yep.
And that makes me feel better. And every time this time of year comes around, I get uptight. I don't know why, but I always think when we're building stuff, I'm building stuff for if I have my own family in it. Mm-hmm. So I cringe when all this weather comes through. I'm like, oh my goodness, something that we did wrong, or I don't feel like we ever doing nothing wrong, but something got looked beside that caused a failure, because we're not perfect. But that this hinges on me of, oh my God, I don't even watch the news, But then on the corner of my eye, I'm like, okay, well, none of ours. But there's been a lot of close calls, and we've had a couple buildings that have taken direct hits, mm-hmm. and have lost some doors and stuff like that, but not the infrastructure, not the structure, not the sheets. It blew out the doors. That's what they're designed to do, so I feel like we win on that.
Right.
But going back into the farm and ranch stuff that we've grown into. And you see a lot on our social media now that we're supporting performance horse, rope horses, bulls, deer, all the good things that we're involved in and own partnerships or straight out own the animal. We're supporting that industry that we have become such a part of. We're the official builder of the NCHA, the NRCHA, the TDA, Texas Deer Association, American Road Push Fraternity, and the Patriot. You know, and those are, yes, they cost money, but those are not things that are given away.
That's an impressive list.
You can't buy your way into those programs to be that person. You have to be the person that will stand behind what they're willing to let you use their branding to be a part of.
Yeah, they work crazy for those bands.
Yeah.
They created those, decades they've been building those brands. They're not going to turn that loose just to anybody over a check.
No.
It's not how that works. So farm and ranch to me is something that's always been in you, is a part of you, right? Rafter P overshadowed that, making it the success that it became. And then farm and ranch has circled back. And so if I'm not mistaken, farm and ranch really spiked for you as a return in your life when you found your way back to the rope and pin. Is that right? Are you the next NFR?
No.
Where
40 plus.
Talk about
40 plus champion.
40 plus champion. Talk about, because I was able to watch that happen, and talk about what got you back into that mode, because I really feel like that's been a big fuel to the flame of something that's always been burning inside of you.
We're going to talk about how that led into that, because you used to give me a lot of crap over my ways of dressing, my wild colors, my what do you call those?
Flip flops is what you call
flip
flops.
Flip flop. I have stock and reef flip flops. So, and I had visors and all these good things. Yeah. So what started all that though is we were building a cart. We did a lot of commercial steel and concrete work. So we worked for other general contractors. So I pulled up on a job one day, and the superintendent, which I've never listened to nobody in my life hardly. So, but this guy just struck a nerve with me. We all were dressed, starched up, hats on, or caps on, whatever. And he said, "You hillbillies from East Texas, all y'all are a bunch of residential builders. You don't need to be in this commercial world. You don't know what you're doing." We finished that job 20 days under schedule because I was going to prove a point, right? Mm-hmm. But I started changing the way I dress because I didn't want to be judged. It's a polar opposite situation of the world that most people, I'm proud to wear what I wear. I've always been proud to wear what I wear. But I didn't want it to affect my general contractor's ability to sell work, to be judged. So I changed what I look like, not because I wanted to be lazy or wear the stuff I was wearing. I just wanted to not look like the guy that was a hillbilly or thought of that way, for my customers' sake and for me to keep my people fed. So that went on for a couple of years with a lot of harassment from a lot of people of the things I wore. So I had I started thinking about things. It was my true passion. Like, I'm getting bored. Like, we're barn door builder. We do a lot. We do really great barn doors. We're the best at it. We can build anything you want. But what makes Brad Pryor happy? And I started thinking, like, I miss roping. I miss time with horses. I miss the things. I mean, when you spend 7 days a week with brood mares and you still love horses, you got a problem. Because it's like living with 5 mad women and 1 horse every day. Because you never know where you're going to wake up. You don't know if they want to bite you, claw you, stick, whatever. They have no manners. They're just mean and mad at the world. So, and I still love horses. So I got back to that, and I got into roping. I got back to my roots. Pat Crawford. I grew up in that roping pen. I've knocked my teeth out there. We played rodeo football. We've done everything in that place. You grew up down the street. We all had healers, from your dad to Pat's. It just got back to being humble, and my heart felt good. And I'm like, I want to start building the whole thing. I don't want to build just a barn. I want to build a city out in rural America. I want to be your rural America guy. You want to build housing, rope and pen. You want to build arena. You want stud barn, mare and motel, deer breeding facility, lodges, casitas, whatever. I want to be that guy. I just don't want to build the one thing. I want to build it all.
Yeah, it becomes at that point it becomes like a site development. It's not just a house or a shop or a barn door or whatever it is. What we're talking about is a site development. So you walk up, and the part that I think is really cool is you walk up to a raw piece of property, and I like to watch your mind just start working. And so what's happening is you're laying out the best spot for the barn versus the house versus the arena versus whatever else they need out there. You're thinking about utility runs, you're thinking about swells to move water. All those things come together, but it all started way back in the very beginning, walking, those ranches and being involved with the animals and knowing what works for them, what doesn't work for them. I think that's a really cool part about the farm and ranch part of it, is that you get to walk on a piece of property and you can develop the whole thing soup to nuts. And I don't think lots of people, I think, brag and think that they can do that. That doesn't mean they do it well. No. I think being able to do it well is something that you should be proud of, because I think that people that would allow you to do that have to have full trust in everything that you're trying to do for them. And I think that part's pretty cool, to watch a customer understand that if they want to build the house on the east side of the property, but you recommend building it on the west side of the property, and here's the reasons why. It's not about saving money or anything like that. It's got a lot to do with function, that practicality of, I can build you something cool, but if it's not cool as a finished product, meaning this is just building one, but there's four more, plus there's that. You got to lay all that out in the very beginning. The first time you break ground, you got to know where you're going. So I think having a plan to develop a site is really cool part of the farm and ranch aspect that you're talking about.
Right. And even if it's a hobby ranch or it's a working ranch where you need to make money off of it, it's a hobby ranch, you want to enjoy it. You don't want to fight obstacles of whatever you're raising on the property or what you're going out there to enjoy on the weekend. You don't want to be an issue. You want to work. Mm-hmm. There's nothing worse than going out there or getting on a lawnmower or getting in a tractor and it won't start. And to me, I feel that way about all my projects, is I want to make you get out there. They can get in the road. Mm-hmm. The water well works. If the power is out, and it takes, typically out in West Texas, it can take 2 or 3 days or weeks to get power back. You got to generate back up. Like, there's so many things that people don't know they need, especially hobby ranches. But with working ranches, utilizing your staff for what they're for. Most ranchers, old school, use their ranch managers as their construction manager. If he's not managing the stuff you're trying to survive on and make money, he's out there dealing with a painter and an electrician or chasing them down, you're losing money. For what I'm charging, I'll make it up to you twofold by just taking care of what I do every day.
Right.
Let your guys do what they do. Let me do what I do. Mm-hmm. I promise you I'll be worth the check you're out.
Let them run the ranch and let you run the building part, right?
Yeah.
That's smart. It makes lots of sense to me.
Right.
So Farm and Ranch has reached well beyond just development of property as well. You'd mentioned it in passing, though. So Rafter P does a really good job of supporting youth. But as it relates to Farm and Ranch, you've got kids that are actively pursuing a rodeo career, which, that's a dying breed, I might add. The tradition of rodeo is, it's tough. And it's not everybody's not cut out for it. I understand that part too, but these kids are trying to make a go of it. So how did you get to the spot where it clicked for you? When did it first start? What was it that launched you into creating the support of young cowboys and cowgirls that want to go out there and make a living in the rodeo world?
Well, typically, well, how it really started is okay, you want me to be a corporate sponsor, I'm going to spend XYZ. Okay, fine. We're going to inject XYZ of that amount of money into a youth program, because that, to me, is going to make your association more powerful. You're building your future, and that's strong for me. So that's how it started. Every time I was given an opportunity to be involved in something, or they want to be a part of it, and I don't just go get involved in everything. I want to involve things I know with the right people are going to inject the right amount of good into the world, mm-hmm. and they have a great product as well. That'll create that youth organization like the Patriot. That's changed hands now, but I've met some of the most amazing kids in my life, mm-hmm. and I've watched them grow. over a short amount of time. But it's crazy being in it. I mean, we were at the PBR a couple weeks ago, and one of my girls came up and like, "Hey, is Brad gonna be there?" And her and her parents want to come up and hang out and talk for a minute. Like, there's no reason to that. I mean, they don't owe me nothing. I don't know nothing. We're just, they're that passionate and thankful for what we're doing with these kiddos, and the availability to talk about things and learn how to interview and learn. Like, we're teaching them so many things that is not taught anywhere really, in school districts and stuff like that. So I think it just gives them an avenue of a way to learn things.
So you're telling the organization, okay, there's a lot to unpack there. So it starts out that you're even going to be allowed to be a part of that organization, which I know it's a mutual two-way street. You want to be a part of people that have value, that are doing things the right way, right? You talked about that a second ago. But so now we've got to the point where you're trying to invest for the marketing aspect or for the promotion aspect, but then you're saying, hey, of these dollars, I need a portion of this to be involved in the youth program. Do a lot of these organizations already have a youth program? I know like the Patriot obviously does, but like some of the others, do they have a youth program, or are you helping them
Patriot
develop
didn't
it?
until we did.
So
You're
an innovator in that regard.
Patriot never had a youth pro team.
See,
They were just strictly, they had a youth, I mean, obviously they had youth for the junior Patriot, but they never had a youth pro team. We were the first to do it. The NCHA rebirthed their program, and they got the right people behind it. It's going great. Mm-hmm. We're going to Arizona next week. We're going to be at the Rain and Cow Horse, and we're going to do a dummy roping, and it's where the most of their kids are at in that particular area. Mm-hmm. And we're just going to put on some stuff to support that youth. But last year we gave $5,000 into the high school finals in NRCHA, and we gave out two $1,500 scholarships. That was stuff that I wanted to do. Is how I was going to do this if I was going to sign up for this. Right. The ability to do that, and nobody is going to take that away from me. Mm-hmm. I'm doing this. People can join, but nobody's going to own it but me. So,
well, and you've earned that. You stoked a fire,
right?
In some cases, you just started a fire.
And you know what it starts. There's people that build in the NCHA. There's people that build in NRCHA. There's people that to some degree, do what I do. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you stoke the fire, what do they want? Well, why didn't you offer that to me? Mm-hmm. Why should we? Why did you come to us and want to do this? Right. And which is a good feeling. But they say that, but they're not trying to inject any more into it. Right. They just want to say something.
I think it's important for people to understand that when they say official builder of NCHA or official builder of whatever organization we're talking about, that there's more behind the scenes going on to promote the youth, which, it's cliche, but it's true. They're our future. They're the next generation to be involved to make this world go round. And I think investing in them while you have the opportunity and the ability to do so is more than just you saying, I'll write a check to be the builder. It's, I'll write a check to be the builder, but I need the youth programs to be promoted so that you can help those kids. And it just circles right back to your raising and what you had to go through in the beginning. I think it's really cool for people to understand that side of you, that aspect of you.
100%.
So that's led to, okay, so now your team roping. You've got these youth programs going, including the pro youth team that you support, lots of kids, getting them up and down the roads and all that good stuff, which is really neat. And so now you've taken another pretty big leap. You own bulls. Mm-hmm. We're not just talking about some pasture bulls or breeding bulls. This is something different. This is PBR, world-class quality bulls. Talk about that for just a second.
Well, honestly, I got a good feel for it over the last month, because when it started, the PBR file started off in the Coliseum, which I grew up in that area. And a lot of people don't know this. The Mule Alley, all those restaurants and the Combs Jeans, all that stuff that's in there, I used to sleep in those stalls. Like that. Yeah. With the horses, when we would have horse shows or we'd have horse sales over at the Coliseum, I slept in the mule barn in the stall of the horses, because all the drunks that would come through there at night, we had a tender to make sure they weren't throwing bottles and all stuff in there. So you had a stall tender there, and I was it. So, so everybody, they don't understand. I think some people don't understand what that Mule Alley really means. There was some first time that some of these guys that own bulls have never been in the Coliseum before, and they're bucking their bulls. Mm-hmm. To me and him, it wasn't that big a deal because we've been there, we've bucked bulls there, but it's such a big deal to some of these guys that have. I mean, that's the first indoor rodeo in the world, mm-hmm. and to be on that type of ground with your bulls in the world finals of the PBR, that's a big thing.
It's a big thing. And
we didn't really, not that at the time we didn't take a big deal. It's just we've already been there, we've done this, and there's guys Dakota was talking about it. It was like taking it back. It's like, man, this is cool. Like, and then we get the aspect of that. So getting to start off there, and then learning and getting to meet there's a lot of good stock contractors. There really is, to me. And I got to meet some older cats that become good friends. A lot of good stories and lots of whiskey drink. But that was the best place to start because I had that opportunity. If it would have started off in AT&T, where we ended up, I wouldn't have got to meet the people and have the time. So that Coliseum, once again, was its own injection into the market because it got us in a small enough place that all of us could sit there and mingle and hang out and talk and get to know each other. Mm-hmm. So, but when it went to AT&T, I mean, it was another one of those moments. That's a big thing. Mm-hmm. And it crawled all over me, especially when I got to AT&T. I was very cool to be in such a main stage of Vegas to me, of the bull world, without being in Vegas.
Yeah, the magnitude of it all.
Yeah,
yeah, it's funny when you're talking about the Coliseum. I got a lot of fond memories there as well, growing up. We'll talk about that later, but I think seeing something that was an idea come to life. I want to have a bucking bull, right? And then it come to life to the point where you're at a PBR final, which is
world finals.
I mean, world finals. It's the top. It's the creme de la creme. Like it's just that story should give people chills. That we're sort of circling back to seeing something and having enough grit to want to achieve it. You'll go through whatever it takes to be able to get to that spot. Now, knowing the right people, being in the right places, and all those sorts of things clearly are part of the story. It has to happen. But you got to have the draw, the desire, the want, the grit to get in the middle of all that and wade your way through it until you get to the part of success. And I think people always like to look at the success, but they forget the story, the backstory of how it gets to from an idea, a concept, a conversation even, to the point where now you've got bulls bucking in the PBR World Finals.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
The old men that are 80, 70 years old that are texting me or calling me mostly, like, hey, I watched your bull buck. I think the judge kind of got you a little behind. Like, they hated bulls. Mm-hmm. They're old town event guys. Town event guys, we didn't give a crap about rough stock stuff. Mm-hmm. All these old town event guys now, David Hartwig, is now watching the PBR because Rafter P's got some bulls in there. Mm-hmm. And what are we doing to influence the market? It's working. You have people that would never watch that. They called it crap. Wasn't crap to me. We're involved, and now it's involving more people that would never be involved in that or want to watch it or support it. And them being interactive with every time that a bull would go out that we would, they would watch on TV. They would have a phone call or a voicemail or a text message, man, whatever. Well, it's working again. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's the reward. Outside the bulls that we have are amazing, but just saying that's the reward of watching that interject itself again.
Even that is so much deeper than I think what most people would assume the answer to that would be. Is that there's still a feeling of something that's tangible for you to create that success and to go from a dream to reality. I think that part's really cool. It's not just they see the bull buck and they see the pictures on Facebook or Instagram or wherever they're, and it's all super cool. But what about how you got there? To me, that's the cool part of the story, and I'm glad that you're sharing things like that to people understand that it didn't just fall in your lap. It just happened. You had to sort of make it happen to some degree, and I think that's important.
I do feel like people I partner with had somewhat of a path of mine that's similar. They want to earn it their own way. They want to push the best product out there. Mm-hmm. Jade Webster didn't start off being where he is at today.
Yeah,
he used to work in the restaurant business for somebody. Now he does what he does, and he does it in all kinds of ways of different things, just like I do. but everybody started from somewhere.
Well, and you mentioned Jay doing lots of different things, different ways. You sort of passed over, and I want to circle back to it. So Rafter P is not just metal buildings. Rafter P is not just even farm and ranch and site development at this point, but there's another staple of the company and an arm, a branch of the company, which is the commercial side. And you'd mentioned it briefly before, but let's talk a little bit about the commercial side, because I don't think a lot of people understand that Rafter P does commercial work.
And another guy that does not need any more air in his head because it wouldn't fit in his room. I have one of the most amazing partners that we literally do not get in each other's way, and we share the same checkbook. But he is the best of the best in the restaurant world. Our ways, we could never manage each other's product with our own ideals. We have our own ways, and he has his own way. Mm-hmm. But I've never seen a merge of a friendship and a partnership that has worked so well. And I would fail in that industry if it was up to me, because I'm a hard charger. He's more figure it out, steady as we go. I don't have patience. He does. You wouldn't think he was sometimes, or think he did sometimes, but he does. But I mean, we're building Cavas, Panera Breads, Chipotle's, Heritage Galleries. I mean, the second largest gallery in the world. We are in rooms with millions of pounds of gold, mm-hmm. and we have that kind of ability to where we are their construction company that takes care of anything in their art department to whatever. Mm-hmm. That guy, that's his stuff. That's his job. I mean, my name, Rafter P, is on it. I mean, which is part of him too. But it's very, I don't know. It's a very enlightening way of feeling with, I don't know how exactly way to say this, but it's cool that my name is on something that somebody else has built. And how me and him developed was off of problems. I worked for him as a GC. He had a GC company with a partner of his that weren't getting along. We poured a Chipotle in Texarkana, Texas, inch and a half out of level in the kitchen, which is the worst place in the world. Kitchen equipment it's not residential. It don't have any movement adjusters and anything like that. We didn't realize this till the end of the project when they start to set the kitchen equipment. It was turned into a $90,000 problem on my end. Me and him drove down to Texarkana that day, and I wanted to freaking, I mean, 90 grand, a lot. I mean, today's a lot of money, but at the time, like, here we go again. Mm-hmm. One more slap in the face of bring it. Went down there, and as we talked, he was discussing him not being happy with his partner, and as all this we figured out, got a solution, and that day we drove back together, and I got out of the truck and said, hey, you don't want to talk, or you want to change up what you're doing, I'd be interested in talking. That's how that started. And then within a year, it was like we were together. Mm-hmm. And he takes care of all that. He is our go-to guy when we think we've got it all figured out. He's the one that blows holes in everything. Right. And we're like, no, we can still get this done. Like, no, this is and typically he's right.
Well, and he's, this is an understatement. He's into racing a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah. And so
he ain't won in a long time, but he's in it.
Well, you can't win unless you go, Brad.
2 years ago, his head got pretty big. Had to get another helmet. But the last few years have been a little rough. Mechanical issues.
Yeah.
What I normally hear.
So that's another thing that I like. I brought all that up so I could bring this up, is that you have an innate ability to have a desire to fan the flames of people's passions. And I think the fact that you want people to be happy, not just while they're at work, but the passions that are outside of work. I've seen you work a deal where you would give an employee a set of golf clubs because they're good with an old set. They might be great with a new set, but that's their passion. That's what they do when they're not burning rods or running equipment for Rafter P. They might be doing that. And you do a great job of finding what that substance that makes them who they are outside of just an employee at Rafter P. And you tend to fan those flames. And I guess if you were trying to look at it holistically as an entire picture, it's the same thing you're talking about with all of the kids and all the stuff that you do with them, is that that's what their passion is. That's what their life is. And you're fanning those same flames. But the reality is you've been doing that for a very long time. It started out maybe smaller before Rafter P became what it was now, or what it is now. Even the FFA auctions and those things we talked about in the very beginning. You think buying somebody's project for $100 doesn't mean something. Talk to that kid who
We have kids that work for us.
yeah, blood,
from
sweat,
that.
and tears. Yeah, that have remembered that and have appreciated that and have brought their skills and their talents and shared them with the company. And it's a full circle view of starting to help people outside of just being an employee. I think that's important for me. My side of the story, what I can reflect on, which is this is not for me to get into at this point, but I think what's important is that people need to understand when we're talking about Rafter P or Brad Pryor. Brad Pryor is a biggest part of Rafter P, but not in your eyes. To you, it's all the employees that make Rafter P what it is. When we have our company meetings and we go into all the different numbers and where we're at and where we're headed and projections and ideas and all the stuff, you're constantly beating the drum to remind the employees that we would not be where we're at if it wasn't for y'all. But the reality is the employees wouldn't even have a place to be if it wasn't for you.
Right.
And you do a good job of not trying to wave that flag too much. Instead, you want it to be about everybody else. And I think that's something that people need to understand and be a part of understanding that you do something more than just employ people. Lots of different people can just write a check for their services, but you do something more than that. You make them, everybody talks about their company as a family. We're a family. But I think at Rafter P, it's a different animal. You're willing to prop them up when they do amazing things. You're willing to cry with them when there's tragedy. You're willing to help them in the areas that make them happy outside of work. And I think that needs to be talked about a little bit more. That it's not just Brad the boss or Brad the owner. It's Brad, and he happens to be the owner. He happens to be the boss. I think that's two totally different views from an employee standpoint. And I don't know how many times people have expressed that to you, but it doesn't go unnoticed, that's for sure. So talk about how amazing you are. Go ahead. Just kidding. Don't do that.
I will say, I am beautiful. But this one thing, Sarah Ward is probably one of the most amazing person we've been blessed with at Rafter P, because I wear her heart out of stress. Mm-hmm. Cole Herron, I'm not worried about. He wears himself out. But Sarah, and I'm saying this because I don't like to feel like I know I'm punishing her heart. But my heart, when I don't have a budget for when we show up to support something. I don't have a budget for the year for this is what we're going to spend supporting our kids or our youth. When I feel like it's time to go, we go. Mm-hmm. And we just figure it out. Mm-hmm. And that's rough on her, but I don't, I probably should have some stop in me, but I just never have. I hadn't had that wall hit me hard enough yet, I guess. I don't know. But that's how I feel about everything you just said, is like when we support these things and we're making a difference or supporting a program we believe in, we don't go in there with a budget. We go in there with we need to fill it out. We might not, if we went over the budget and say we're going to spend $5,000, but we only needed $2,500, we save that money for something else that does need it. Mm-hmm. And you can't be corporate America and make a difference.
Well, you don't go in with a budget, you go in with a passion.
Right.
And I think
everybody around me works hard enough, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
If I have to look behind me and say, boys, whip and ride, we're gonna whip and ride. Mm-hmm. And that's all that matters to me. If I have that ability, then I'm still do what I do. Mm-hmm. If I feel like I don't have that behind me, then I'm gonna find people that will whip and ride, and we're gonna whip and ride together.
Yeah, well, you got to cast a vision for where you want things to go. but then you got to have the supporting structure to help you get where you got to go, because you can't cast a vision and create all these different things and not be able to also still be the only person that can get things done. That's the staple of the business, in this case barn dominiums or commercial work or whatever we might be talking about. So to have the right team assembled to support that mentality too, I think is something pretty special.
It's the only company I know in the world that doesn't start off with the year that we have to make $40 million this year. Why would I want to handicap us? Mm-hmm. I want to do whatever the heck anybody will hire us to do, and we're gonna make money doing it. And if that's $40 million, great. If it's $28 million, great. If it's $100 million, that's great. Mm-hmm. To me, we're all eating, we're all good, we're all healthy, we're pushing, and we're gonna grow. And you give that natural ability to grow instead of here we need to hit this number. No, not that we can sit here and just we gouge people, but we find ways to be more creative with how we spend our money or how we do things, be more efficient. That's the ability to not say, here's your number. Be more efficient, be more accurate where you're at, make more dollars than cents. So, and I feel like that business models are not out there like that anymore.
Well, I'd love for people to understand that when they're hiring Rafter P, they're also supporting all those things that you just got done describing and talking about. I mean, horseshoes, pixie dust and IOUs don't pay the bills. And so it's real money that has to come from somewhere. And the fact that you choose to invest in those organizations, that people that choose Rafter P have to understand they're also choosing those organizations as well. They're supporting things that are important to you, and it should be important to them too. It's our youth, along with other things as well, but most importantly, our youth. And I think that's pretty cool.
Well, taking their money that we're making off of them, we don't, like this is what I just said. If you think about what I just said, we don't have a budget for what we're going to spend a year. I take out of whatever we do, and we still make everything else work to go spend money into what we do. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying charge more. We're going to spend $1 million and inject it into the markets of this and that to give back. We don't do that. Mm-hmm. What we do is we just work hard. We find things that need it. We give it to them. And we find ways if we need to make up a other end of it, we do it. Mm-hmm. We work harder. Work longer. Mm-hmm. Longer nights, longer days. Not take it back up on a customer to make it back up. We just work harder. It's more efficient.
Cool to have a team that's assembled that understands that and is willing to go through that process, knowing that there's a return for somebody else, not even them, a return beyond themselves, like the youth that we're talking about. It's really neat to talk about those things and explain those things, because I think people, again, they see all these posts, they see these things, and they don't understand the true nature of what Rafter P really stands for and necessarily where it came from. Mm-hmm. I mean, like you said, it wasn't a silver spoon, it was a lead spoon. Right. Had to start somewhere. And look where it's at now. And I think a lot of determination. You're probably not great at taking compliments. Most guys aren't. But I think it needs to be said that you've done an awesome job building something from nothing and then transferring that into other people's success. And it's not just success during the 9 to 5 work hours. It's success after hours and on the weekends too. It makes them a genuinely happy employee. And you know what you get? The worst thing in the world, the most dangerous thing to any company is an unmotivated employee. The fact that you've got motivated people that want to do things because it's for the right reasons, I think makes the team as strong as anyone else out there, and in my opinion, better than anyone else out there. Yeah. And you have a lot to do with that. So,
well, my hardest interview I've ever done was for Texas Monthly, and they contract that out. So this lady set up an interview with me. I was out at the Brownwood place hunting, and I came in. Have this interview, but she's from New York. Doesn't know nothing about the Western sports industry, the Western heritage, the cowboy way of life, none of that. And explaining that to somebody over the phone in an interview is probably the rawest thing. She's like, I need you to be more cocky. I need you to be more about yourself. All you keep talking about is all the things you're proud of and what you do and what you support and what your team and all that. So I need you to talk about you. I was like, I don't know how to do that. And I'm not saying that because we're on camera right now. I was like, I don't feel comfortable doing that. And she said, when I talked to the editor later, she's like, that lady was the hardest interview she's ever done. She's like, most people just sit there and bloat and gloat about themselves, and then it's easy to get all the information down and write a story. This guy was just a stick in the mud, and he was about this, and that's all he wanted to talk about. And I'm good with that. I mean, who's the guy at 4.6 the Boots? The old man that the Boots. Yeah.
Yeah.
His not that I philosophize my personality around him, but I was watching an interview about him, same way. And he talk about stories, wild things they've done. I do that. Now, if we want to talk about wild stories,
We don't have that much time.
we'd have like 3 days worth of that. But he never talked about himself.
You know, the brings to mind a story. So, local guy from the Cattle Mills area, which is where I grew up, right around the corner from Union Valley and Royce City, the same places you're talking about. Like I said, we had a lot of the same stomping grounds. There was a guy named Andy Guthrie, a mountain of a man, repoed cars, bail bondsman, bouncer, one of those guys, right? And Andy had an uncle. Uncle. He called him Slim, Uncle Slim. Well, Uncle Slim grew up working on all the historical ranches. He spent time at 4.6s and a few others. And we got to go up one time and just sort of, he moved up to the mountains of Colorado. And we got to go up and just visit with him. And him telling his ranch stories about how life was, 70 or 80 years ago. And it reminds me of that grit that you're talking about. Like they would drive cattle. There were no fences. They would drive cattle for days, sometimes weeks, and they packed in whatever they were going to take. And if they didn't take it, they didn't have it. And they would come up on these water sources, and some were ponds, some were creeks, some were rivers, but some had stagnant water. And he says he watched the horses, and he understood how to drink water by watching the horses. I know that sounds crazy. The horses would go down, and they would blow and get all the flies and the junk off the top of the water, and they would sip the water. Well, the cowboys did the same thing. They went up and they blew, and he says you would blow until you got your face in the water below all that, and then you'd get a drink. And I think to myself about what it took to survive then and how good we have it in today's world, right? It's so much easier. But if it hadn't been for those people doing what they did, right, we wouldn't have the life that we have. And I think likewise, if you weren't doing the things that you were supposed to be doing, if you weren't the person out there on your hands and knees getting through it all, then there wouldn't be a Rafter P to even talk about. Mm. So I think it's important to remember where you come from for sure.
Well, you can thank Bob Morehouse for Rafter P, because before I left the ranch for a month, and I went and interviewed Bob Morehouse at Morehouse Ranch, and I realized real quick the Metroplex Cowboy does not belong in West Texas. And if people don't know who Bob Morehouse is, then just don't watch this no more. But anyway, when I went inside his house, he had his old fireplace, had the swing out coffee, cowboy coffee, cooking on there, and me and a buddy of mine that drove me down there, and the plan was to drop me off and never come back. And as Bob talked to me, and I was like, oh man, we're drinking this coffee, and it was like drinking pure freaking like oil.
Yeah. Chewing the coffee beans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh man, that feeling in my gut. If I couldn't take that, I can't take anything else he's got out here. Mm-hmm. He offered me a dozer job for $8 an hour with no cab. That's the best he had. And I turned it down. Came back. I told it back to the Metroplex Cowboy situation. And yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. A lot of lessons to be learned out there. And I think that ranching lifestyle, man, it teaches so much to so many people if they're willing to go through it, right? And it's sort of a badge of honor, too. Like if you've had to muck stalls, if you've had to break a few colts, particularly when you weren't good at it, if you'd had the huevos to climb on the back of a bull, which huevos just means not bright enough to not get on. But at the end of the day, it teaches you a lot about what matters. And until you decide for yourself what matters, how can you tell anybody else what matters to you?
All right.
And I like that part about the story is that you learned early on what really mattered to you. And having people around you that were willing to help pull the rope in the same directions and reminding yourself that you're not alone. You're not by yourself. You're not the only one doing it. I think it's a great story. I think it's a great end cap to a story that started off with a rough beginning, but has become something that's pretty dang successful, and it's an exciting ride to be on.
Yes, sir. It's been amazing.
Been amazing.
Been amazing.
What else do you want the world to know about you, sir? Anything else?
I gotta pee.
That sounds right.
Each and every Tuesday, catch a new episode of Grit Branded as we dive into stories from all walks of life in the hopes of you discovering what your grit is.